Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Black Belt Fishing. Today we're going to talk about the old free rig. So, what is the free rig? Well, it makes up like three components. So, those three components would be any type of like flipping or EWG style hook. That's just what I prefer. I'm using an Eagle Claw one now. This is kind of a new one that has like a little keeper on it to help keep your bait up at the top. It may also makes up a glass or plastic bead, about 8 millimeter, and then it also has a closed eye. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it has a closed eye drop shot weight on it. So that what that does is allows this to kind of move down the line nice and free, like hence the name free rig. Um, Basically, what I got me onto this bait, I think it came up about maybe 2 years ago. I don't think it's a brand new technique. I think it's been around a little while, but I kind of got onto it from a guy named Shin during I think it was a Bass University or Bass TV segment, like a 6 minute segment where he talked about using this particular style of fishing for bed fishing, or when he felt like the fish were holding really, really tight to cover. His idea was that when you would throw this up against cover, it would still, all this would be thrown at once. So this would all go to the cover all at one time. It would hit, next to it, and then once it hit the water, it would separate, and it would allow and then you would be throwing this on a slack line. So you're throwing it out, and it's going to be on a completely slack line, not semi-slack, 100% slack line. And as soon as it hit the water, the bead and the weight would separate, allowing it to drop straight down, and then the bait would follow. Whereas on like a traditional peg Texas rig, he was trying to say that with it being pegged, sometimes it hits the water, and instead of going straight down with the peg being on it, it kind of goes down at an angle like that. So you kind of miss that little strike zone opportunity when you're fishing against fish that are holding tight to cover. Now, I did use this quite a bit in the tournament, in a lot of my tournaments this year, mostly a little bit spring, early summer is about what I use it, and then I kind of quit using it. I traditionally don't peg my Texas rigs unless I'm fishing in like some type of mat or something like that. But I really didn't see much of a difference between the free rig, which is just the bead and the tungsten drop shot weight, and just having an unpegged Texas rig. Because if you look, it kind of is similar, and it can kind of move up and down the line just as easy as the bead and the tungsten. Now, the difference I would say between the two is the noise that you can get from the tungsten bead, or the tungsten weight in the plastic or glass bead. You can get a little bit of a, you kind of hear that when it hits, kind of just a little bit of noise with it. Now, don't try to use like a tungsten bead though. This is just an 8 millimeter glass bead, because I tried that, and the properties kind of have a little bit of like a magnetic action to it, so it kind of made it stick to each other, so I wasn't getting any noise out of it. So you definitely got to use a plastic or glass bead. Now, if you wanted to, if the noise was something you were looking for, you could just simply stick a cheap little rattle in your plastic baits. I mean, I think that would 100% work for this technique. But yeah, I threw it both pretty much equally the same. Like I said, I don't usually peg any of my weights. Now this is something, now the free rig is a little bit more unique than your traditional unpegged Texas rig, but I feel like it's got the same action. There were a few times. Now I was throwing this on a 7'3" Duckett Triad rod. I had an 8 in 1 gear ratio KastKing Royal Legend reel. Now there were a few times when I was using this that I could kind of tell in the tip that the weight had separated from the bait. Now the other issue too is I was throwing it up against tight cover, and sometimes I would get into some cover or some brush that had really tiny like twigs that were sticking out, and every once in a while what would happen is the weight and the bait would separate, and I would go to hop it over and it would get hung up like this. So I was spending a little bit of time trying to fight with that. I didn't have that much trouble with the unpegged Texas rig with the brush, but I mean it was all it was hard to duplicate the same thing over and over again. But I did feel like this one got hung up a little bit more if there were especially small, like little branches in the brush piles that I was fishing. So with the unpegged Texas rig, I threw it probably roughly the same amount. And like I said, and I pretty much use this all summer. I usually don't peg the stuff. But I feel like they both perform exactly the same. I didn't see a huge difference. I never felt like the bait was sliding down, just right down next to the cover more than the unpegged Texas rig was. So I'm not 100% sure if it, I mean, there's obviously some difference here. When I pick up this and I kind of move it on that line, it does feel like it moves a little bit easier. But as far as being in the water, I don't feel like it's moving that much different because this still moves pretty easily. And I'll leave a link in the description below. But there was a guy on YouTube right now that has a video of him doing a comparison between the two, and there was very few times that the free rig looked a little bit different than the unpegged Texas rig. There was a few times where he would fish it, or when he was hopping it up and down, that the free rig would kind of go down a little bit slower than the unpegged Texas rig. Now when I use this, I fished it completely on a fully slack line. And that's why I had the high gear ratio, so I can make up the difference. But what I would do is once I felt it was on bottom, I would pop it up really hard, and then it would come down, and I could kind of tell every once in a while it would separate, but not every time though. Not anything different from the unpegged Texas rig. Just once in a great while I could tell a difference, and once it hit, I'd let it sit there, and then I would wait a second, boom, I'd pop it up again, fully slack line. But I'd always be ready. I'd always be watching my line though, because as soon as that thing took off, I'd try to reel down and pick up my fish. And that's why I think the higher gear ratio is crucial for this type of technique, especially with fishing on a slack line. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you guys have used this particular setup here recently. I'd like to kind of compare how I fish it to how you guys fish it. I just threw a couple beaver baits on it. I used some other stuff too, mostly just cross style profiles. Yeah, just leave a comment down below. Let me know how you fish it, or if you've even tried it, or if it's something you want to get into. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and if you guys would, leave me a comment. I got to really know how you guys are fishing this stuff, because I want to kind of compare it and try different things with it. That's the biggest thing with the channel that I've got going right now, is I kind of want to get opinions and techniques so I can try them at my local lakes here. So anyways, that's it for the day. Next week we're going to be talking about some of the hard baits that I use during the tournament season. Now, like I said, most of my tournament seasons, I'm not like a full-on professional by any means. I fish a lot of club tournaments. I'm just trying to build my way up to that level right now. But yeah, that'll be on the spotlight for next week. But try the free rig out. If you've tried it in the past, let me know what you've had success with. But I'll see you guys in the next one.